This is the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. Hi everyone, welcome to the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. I am Angelica, the founder of the Voice of Early Childhood, and today I have with me Josh Candy, who is an early years PE teacher. Thank you, Josh, for joining today.
Thanks a lot for inviting me on, Angelica. It's a pleasure.
Yeah, so we'll get straight into it because today we're going to talk about PE in early years, or physical education for those that don't usually use that term. So it's quite an interesting one, as PE is not kind of usually seen as an early years kind of focus or subject, I guess. So it'd be interesting to hear all about your work, Josh, because that is your role, as PE teacher. So, just kind of, I guess, give us a little brief intro of what you do, what your role is, and I guess what you do day to day.
Yeah, of course. So I'm a PE teacher. I work for a company called Dicky Birds, part of the Brandier UK group. We're based in London, so I've got 8 nurseries that I oversee with Dicky Birds. I'll start with a bit of background about me to begin with, because from the age of 14, I was football coaching. So I've always been within sort of this similar line of work. I've played football my whole life. I've coached football for a long time. I got my degree in secondary PE, and then I kind of hit a bit of a road bump of not knowing where to go. Something about working in the PE industry, primary and secondary, was too structured. Like you're told what you've got to teach. It's this, and then this, and then it only comes down to kind of the freedom of what you teach is very limited. So I kind of wasn't too sure what to do. And this opportunity came up at Dicky Birds as a sports teacher. So I thought, okay, I'll try my hand at it, see what it's like. Then I've covered kind of every stage. And 7 years later, I am where I am. I'm here. And it's only really been since the pandemic that I kind of understood that PE wasn't kind of as big in the early years, or really not big at all. And I didn't really know why. I just took for granted that PE happened. It was a normal thing. So yeah, I've kind of been on a bit of a journey for the past maybe 4 or 5 years, just starting to understand a little bit more about why PE is not being done across the UK in early years settings. I know there are a few other companies that do something similar to what we do here. But yeah, it's become more of it's a passion of mine. I love doing what I do, but it's also a bit of a journey to understand how can we make PE known as a term in the early years industry, not just physical development. As much as physical development is vitally important, and that is a guideline that we have to follow, I believe that PE does hold its own place within early years. And not just sort of fitted in and amongst that physical development bracket.
Yeah, and that's how people normally see it, isn't it? I guess as either in early years fitting into physical development, or more of an extracurricular kind of activity. So how is PE different to physical development then, in early years specifically?
I think the physical development side of a child's life growing up, a journey for them, physical development happens naturally. I think if you was to take away every other key area of learning, if you took away your literature and your maths and stuff like that, it'd be very hard for a child to develop that naturally. Physical development, I think, is the only thing that a child can really do within themselves. That's their exploration. It's something that they can do at a different level to someone else. It's something that naturally happens. PE for me is the understanding of different elements of physical development. For example, with the sports, I don't like using the term just sports, because I believe PE is far more than just understanding sports. But obviously, notoriously in the UK, we say PE, and we establish it with doing formal structured sport. So PE in early years for me is physical development, but it also combines other areas of the EYFS under a bracket of learning through sports-based play. So a typical lesson for me, if I was to cover football, I'm not expecting the children to go out there an 11-a-side pitch with goals and perform what you would think to be football. For me, football is the understanding of what is this sport and how can we develop the different areas of the EYFS through that channeling of football. So it has come. It's come trial and error. It's a lot of hard work's been put into kind of understanding the balance between typical PE and the kind of, if you were, adaptation of PE to fit the early years needs. So the early years PE, because it's not being done, there's no statutory guideline for what should be delivered. So it's kind of almost an open door to, okay, how do we fit PE into the early years world as such?
Yeah, so it must be quite a difficult job because you're working with something that like you said, not many people out there are doing it. There's no kind of guidance documents, I guess. So you're just using so the EYFS like you normally would in a setting. And then how do you decide what else to put into your sessions, I guess? Do you look at anything else that's out there?
I think for me, because I've gone through a physical education, the degree that I've done at secondary level, I've understood more about that side of things. So what I did was I kind of took the natural approach of taking what I knew and then understanding the children for the first maybe 6 months of working in early years, which was completely new to me, getting to grips with what the children were capable of doing, and then just adapting it. So PE, as what we know, is always going to stay the same. How can we change that for the early years age for them to kind of get the same thing from it? So a typical 6-week block of football, I have the children just understanding this is football. We have the shape of the ball is round, whereas rugby, you have like a different shaped ball. We don't use our hands in football. So I just get the children to understand that. My way of doing that is through imagination and play. So for football, for example, I use a little mascot called Poppy the penguin. It's a tiny little cuddly toy. Because my way of doing it is I want the children to understand a term through something that they already know. So children will know what penguins are. Penguins carry their eggs by their feet. So I have little images of penguins carrying eggs by their feet. I tell the children, it's like, right, you're going to become penguins now. So they're penguins. Penguins don't have hands, so they can't use their hands. And their job is to move their footballs, which is their eggs, around the pitch to keep hold of the ball. So for them, what they're doing is they're just playing a game. They're using their imagination. They're linking that penguin movement, and they don't feel like they're being taught a lesson of football. So I feel like if I was to go in there bluntly and directly with, okay, we're playing football now. You've got to keep the ball at your foot and you have to move around and don't lose the ball. It's something that they can't associate to anything. So,
and there's a lot of instruction there, isn't there? And it's kind of almost out of context for them because they've never played. A lot of them never played a game of football and may not even know what it is.
Exactly, and I think that's the beauty of the early years side of teaching PE is all of these children, they may have seen it before, but they won't know what this is. So when you go into primary school, children will know what a sport is, and then you're trying to teach it that way. In early years, you're not teaching the sport; you're embedding an understanding, which through play, which the children can then take and recognize and move forward. So we've had lots of children who have done PE with me in their final year, and I see them when they've gone to school, all the local schools, and the parents have said to me, "Is like, oh, the children they're really good at football. They found a really good interest in rugby, or they love tennis." And I'd like to think that's because of the little connections that they've learned prior at early years in nursery. That's kind of stuck with them. So there's just the different ways of linking that learning without being so kind of explicit with it. Another example that I do when I do cricket, because this is quite a difficult one to teach early years at cricket. I don't do any like batting, which is the main focus of cricket. You'd imagine cricket, it's all about bat, hit, ball. The children aren't ready to do that just yet. So I embed the understanding of what is cricket. So we have our stumps, we have the wicket. I introduce the names, the wording, what it is. And then to teach the technique of a bowl, which is very difficult to do because it requires a straight arm and it's a particular movement. The children at this age are never going to be able to do that. So I use Cece the crocodile. It's a little crocodile. Ask the children, if you ask any child, show me what a crocodile does with your hands. Intrinsically, they're going to do that snap motion. So if you just put a ball in their hand from there, you tell them to be crocodiles. They hold the ball nice up high and they snap down like a crocodile. That's, to them, all they're doing is being a crocodile and throwing a ball towards 3 sticks in the ground. But what for me, what I can see that they're learning is the end phase to bowl with a straight arm, and they're aiming towards the wickets. So when they go to school and they start to develop that a little bit further and they see the wickets and they have a cricket ball in their hand, they'll have that connection with, okay, I know what I need to do. I need to keep that arm straight and I need to aim towards, and that's not going to happen with every child, of course. But it's just embedding that setting from the outset to allow them to kind of go on to something they enjoy. So, and the mascots are crucial in every part of my teaching, because that's what the children recognize. And they don't care about the sport. They just care about seeing that little cuddly toy at the beginning of the lesson. And it's a story, like a 6-week story that we continue each week as a little progression. And yeah.
So it almost sounds a bit like story-based learning, which I know some settings do when they really kind of focus on a specific story or book or a character, and then embed different things that they want children to learn through that book or character. And it's that kind of medium using a like a little, like you said, a little cuddly toy or a puppet to be able to communicate to the children with and through that. So it's not necessarily just that direction coming from you as, I guess, the teacher.
Yeah, I think a lot of the resistance I had initially when I started to try and explore, like, why is PE not happening in early years? I couldn't find anything online about it anywhere. One of the resistances I had from senior people within the early years sector were saying that, PE is seen as too elite, or it's too structured, or it's too strict, or it's too rigid. And it was like, well, hold on a minute, but that's what we expect to see. When you think about old school PE, you think in a sports hall, shorts pulled right up high to the waist, children standing behind a line, being told to run laps around the pitch. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's a stigma that still exists, even though that is so far from what happens now in PE, not just in early years, but in every aspect of PE. And I think that's where it was like, the children need to have some form of structure, but if you're doing it in the right way, there's the benefits of it far outweigh not having it as something that should be in here now. And using the mascots, using the toys. I also have a story at the beginning of all of my lessons as well. So I read Mr. Men books quite a lot because they're fantastic for the age group as well. And it's very difficult to find a book for that age that's associated with the sport. But again, it's that from the start of the lesson, we read the story, we introduce the character, we do our little introduction, like a little story-based stuff, and the children's attention straight away is focused and switched on. That has only come from the last couple of years of trial and error. I used to just get to the park and try and get straight into it. And it was fine, but children would lose that concentration and they kind of just want to play very, very quickly. So I kind of had to step back a little bit and think, okay, right, what do the children engage in? What do they enjoy? And it's all imaginative play. And that is the one story-based imagination play is the one thing that you can get a child to do. You can get them to do anything. You could tell them that the whole room is full of sharks on the floor and you've got to get them to just step around the sharks, and they're transfixed on it. So I thought, okay, let's start introducing that, combining that with the sports side of stuff. And it has proven over the last few years to just be the best way to teach structured PE for the 3 to 5 year old range.
And it reminds me of the kind of debate around adult and child-led play, and a lot of educators, as you know, often worry about that, and I guess dismiss, almost go the other way and start dismissing any kind of form of activities that are a little bit too structured and too adult-led, because they really want to go more, with the child-led focus and following the child's interests, which is what a lot of research out there is showing is the best way for children to learn, through play, through their interests, which makes perfect sense. But then they can't just soak up, new skills through child-led activities all the time, if we don't give them any kind of structure and instruction. So that's kind of like where you come in. And also, interestingly, I went to a talk recently by Ben Kingston Hughes. So I was thinking of getting him on the podcast as well. And he talks about exactly what you were just saying in terms of building an imaginative scenario for children, and then really kind of everyone, all the practitioners being on board with that scenario, and everyone kind of being in the moment there in that imaginative role play kind of scene. And everything then happens through that story. And it's, I guess, sparking that and introducing that for the children, and then they can start taking it in their own directions, I guess.
I think it's having the purpose behind what you're doing. So I fully agree with the child-led play. I've got a level 2 in childcare, and I got that to kind of bolster my understanding of the early years. So especially during the pandemic, I spent a lot of times where I couldn't go out. I was in my bubble. I was in the rooms. I spent a lot of time as a practitioner, and I learned how to use that child-led play. So we would be times where a child would see an airplane in the sky, and straight away you're like, right, let's make paper airplanes, and that be that thing that's clicked. But I do think there has to be some level of guidance from the teacher. And if you're picking up on the interest of the child, and then you're combining it with some form of structured play, then not only are the children leading that choice, but the teachers are being educators for what they do. There are so many practitioners that I know that just have that desire to kind of share knowledge, and they want children to learn. And I think we can't lose that structured learning. There has to be an element of it, but it just needs to change subtly. I remember listening to a podcast, the Circle Time podcast, and it was about the circle time, and how they were saying children shouldn't be sat. I think it was Lala Manners done that podcast episode, and she said children sitting down in a circle structured it's a stress position for the child. And there's no reason to say you shouldn't have circle time. It's just the way that it's done. So essentially with relating that back to PE lessons and to what I do with PE is the same thing. I use those kind of initial sparks that the children will have, embed some form of rule-based structure, and let the children then learn through. Again, I say I don't do the teaching. I let my little mascots and whatever them do the teaching, because they're the people or the things that children are fixed on, and the story. I let that be the educator. But deep down, underneath that, you strip that back. If you went from the tip of the iceberg all the way down to the bottom of the iceberg, the tip of the iceberg is the children playing a game. The bottom of the iceberg is that rich knowledge that they're gaining, which is from a system of structure.
And all those skills that they're learning. And so just want to kind of go back to what you were saying earlier in terms of talking about a sport, not really using the word sport, but PE instead. But in a way, children are really encouraged to kind of gain that interest in sports and love of different sports, aren't they? In terms of like the things that you're exposing them to, you are exposing them to a variety of different sports, which they will end up doing in future. In primary school, they'll be exposed to these. different sports. So it's embedding that love early, or at least, if they're not going to have a love for a particular sport, it's at least that kind of opportunity to understand it, try it out. So they're exposed to more opportunities in this way, rather than just physical development, just movement. Actually, it's something they could really dig their teeth into, and it's quite a concrete. It can become quite a concrete interest, can't it?
I think the word you used in that sentence was opportunity, and I think that is the key thing. I think even not just on the PE front of it, but opportunity in any element of it is the key thing. And a lot of our children. I'm based in London. A lot of our children live in story flats. They don't have that opportunity to go to the park. We've got a lot of children who do have that the luxury of having a garden. But for me, it's so expensive to send a child to do swimming, to do a tennis club, to do a football club, to do rugby.
Yeah,
I've got two daughters. I've got a 6-year-old and a nearly 2-year-old. My 6-year-old does swimming and gymnastics on a weekend, and I couldn't afford to do any more than that. Not even that, but time. It's hard. So for me, trying to introduce as many of these different sports to the children is something that they wouldn't get. They might not have the opportunity to. We've had situations where parents come up to me and said, so-and-so, little Jimmy keeps on talking about tennis. I want to get them some tennis rackets. What can we do? And I've said, just you have the equipment. You can be anything. You don't even have to have a proper tennis racket. You could have a frying pan and a pair of socks. And you use the same. It's just if they've got an interest in it, trying to pick up on that interest. I say to a lot of our parents in the parents' evenings, I say, if you bought one tennis racket, really cheap one from the pound shop, a tennis ball, if you made your own stumps for cricket stumps, you had a football, if you just put a load of equipment in a space, in an area, that child they'll explore that in their own way, and they'll find something within there that they might think, oh, I enjoy that. Yeah. So if you span that across, obviously for me, I do September through to September. Within that year, the children are learning a real kind of variety of sports that they can then choose to take on. And if they might really, really enjoy doing tennis, and they might see tennis whilst they're at the weekend with their mum or dad at the park, and think, oh, I'd really like to do that. And I think that's the key. It's just giving the children the opportunity to explore some different things that they may or may not ever get the chance to do.
And then I guess they have that kind of interest and those skill sets that they can explore things further when they are presented with a variety of kind of random materials, and they can then think, oh, actually, this is something familiar to what I did back with Josh. And yeah, like you say, it doesn't have to be expensive or a specific club or a specific kind of sports membership. So it is really opening up a lot more children to these opportunities in terms of, like, being more inclusive, I guess. So in terms of kind of inclusivity, I guess, and I was going to talk about educators themselves being able to provide PE opportunities for children. So obviously your role is really important. And clearly, with what you were saying in terms of earlier, when I asked kind of what do you use apart from just the EYFS, because is there much else out there? And you said it is coming from your own expertise and your background and your education. So your role there is like embedded in your own educational expertise there in terms of sports and PE and that background. What about when educators don't have that knowledge? And, as we've talked before, a lot of the time it's like a confidence thing, isn't it? In terms of thinking, well, I can support children's physical development, but I don't know how to play cricket. I don't know what kind of skills I can teach them here. Just quickly, I wanted to thank all the listeners for tuning into the Voice of Early Childhood podcast. Those of you who are regular listeners will know that a new episode comes out every Monday morning, ready for your commute, morning coffee, or that reflective start to the week to get you thinking and in the zone. If you haven't already done so, it would really help this podcast to keep going if you subscribe to the channel that you're listening on. The Voice of Early Childhood podcast can be found on 19 different podcast platforms and on YouTube. So it's highly likely that you, your friends, and colleagues can find it on your favorite streaming platform. So please do hit the subscribe button, and this will help us to keep putting out thought-provoking, reflective, and insightful episodes with a wide range of guests. Thank you. I'll let you get back to the episode now.
Yeah, I mean, that's the difficulty. I think that's the stepping stone that I'm kind of exploring as well, as to how to overcome it. Mm-hmm. My firm belief, though, is we've got so many fantastic practitioners and educators within the early years industry that if you give them anything, that, I mean, you don't have to be an expert in marine life to be able to teach children about fish and sharks, for example. Mm-hmm. Or you don't have to be a civil engineer to teach children about building. Mm-hmm. It's the same thing. If just to introduce elements of physical education is something that you can do just with, as we're talking about opportunity. If you had a football, just one football, and you took a group of 8-10 children into the garden with that one football, you've got hundreds, and I mean that's no exaggeration, you've got hundreds of different ways that you could incorporate an understanding of football without explicitly teaching football. Mm-hmm. You could play a game where the children have to just roll the ball with their foot, or they've got to just kick the ball in a circle to another child. It may not be perfect. It may not be what you'd imagine it to be PE, but that is teaching PE. That's embedding a slight element of physical education. And you can do that with anything. There's been, so during lockdown, I was doing DIY videos, like do it yourself videos from home. Mm-hmm. And I didn't have cricket stumps at home. I didn't have a cricket bat. I had a ball and I had some cardboard boxes. So what I done is I stacked the cardboard boxes up. I put one of my daughter's little teddies on top of the cardboard boxes. And the game, not lesson, the game was to hold the ball, to snap like a crocodile and try and knock that toy off of the boxes. Mm-hmm. To a child, they're not going to see that as cricket. They're not even going to know that's cricket. To an educator and to a practitioner and to someone watching, observing, they are demonstrating the simple understanding of the bowling technique. Mm-hmm. So it's just educators being that imagination. They've got to, I mean, if we're working in early years, there is some part of us that are children at hearts. We're all kids at hearts. Mm-hmm. And I think that if you put yourself into the mindset of a child, no matter what you do, a child will be gripped onto whatever you're doing. So whether that be a water tray, a builder's tray full of water with some fish and some blue paper, that's sparking something for the child without really kind of having to do so. In a PE example, if you took a bucket of tennis balls out in the garden, there's an opportunity there for children to not only learn and to gain knowledge, but for practitioners to feel comfortable and think, okay, this isn't so difficult. I don't need to be an expert in tennis, but I can use tennis here to introduce something. So I think it may be a confidence thing, but I think it's also understanding that there are so many levels to PE that we don't need to go too in depth. Mm-hmm. When they go to school, that is the job of a PE teacher. That would be someone like me. That would be a specialist that come in. But for someone who hasn't got that specialist stuff, there's no reason to say that they couldn't demonstrate or take part in some form of physical education. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think it's just sharing that voice and saying you can do it. Don't feel like you can't do it. Even just the smallest element of introducing that sport to the child is giving them something. It's just building that up. And I tell you what, most practitioners probably already do this. They probably just don't realize that actually what they're doing is physical education.
Yeah.
There's got to be balls in every single early years garden that you go to. I can't imagine there not being a ball. So use what you already have as a tool to kind of teach, and you've got it.
Mm-hmm. So I guess in terms of an educator thinking, again, going back to that difference between physical development and PE, is it really thinking of like, what's the purpose behind this? Are the children learning a specific skill rather than, because I'm kind of still, I think personally, I thought I kind of understood what you explained at the beginning, and now I'm kind of like struggling in terms of like, okay, so then that still sounds a little bit like physical education, because children are, physical development, because in physical development early years, children are learning specific skills, even though they may not be particularly associated with a certain sports-based kind of skill set.
Yeah. I think for me, I think the term physical development is something that doesn't need to be taught. I think physical development is just something that is something that can be nurtured. I think if you had an empty room and you put a child in there, they're not going to gain much from that. They're not going to develop. I think that's the way I try and think about it. Whereas if you had a room that was full of ups and downs and slopes and steps and bumps and chairs and anything like that, what you're doing is you're giving them an environment to develop their physicality. So we can help the development of physical development, but I don't think you can explicitly teach physical development. I think something like physical education you can teach, because it has that underpinning. There is knowledge behind what you're doing. You can't teach a child. You're not going to say to a child, okay, today we're going to do physical development, because it's just not. With maths, you can say to a group of children, you can be like, right, today we're going to do some maths, because that is something that is teachable. I think if you say, oh, we're going to learn some literature, we're going to do some, or you wouldn't say that, but if you was doing some words or writing or anything like that, that is literature. Physical development, you can, but it's more difficult to explicitly teach physical development. I think you can nurture that as opposed to teach it. So for me, that's the difference. PE is something you can teach, you can educate, you can bring in resources and tools to be able to start that understanding of different sports and different elements. I mean, something I'm going to try and do this year is bring the theory side of PE. So start talking about like healthy eating, and start talking about what does the body do, what happens to our heart when we're running and jogging. I do touch upon it really, really briefly, but nowhere near enough to what I'd like to. But that's something linked in with physical education. I wouldn't say you put the understanding of the body under physical development. I think, again, physical development is the thing that happens. And yes, we want our children to develop the best way they possibly can physically, but that comes from their own explorative. You've got some children that will just throw themselves off of climbing frames. That's their physical. This is where the physical literacy side of stuff comes in. And I will say physical literacy for another topic, because that's so in depth. But that physical literacy is what kind of umbrellas the terms of everything underneath it. But yeah, physical development, I think you can nurture and you can help, but you can't explicitly teach it. Physical education, you can teach physical education. You can educate the child physically. I think that's the break it down in that sense, and it kind of makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah. And I think it certainly does make more sense now. I think it's harder understanding how PE fits in early years, whereas its place there, because it's not kind of as, I guess, explicit and advanced, probably maybe is the right word, as you would teach in primary and secondary, because then you would start linking to other aspects, like you said, of nutrition and how the body functions and all of that side of things. And that really does make sense. Okay, yeah, that's definitely, there's that distinction between physical development and physical education. Yeah, it certainly is. I can kind of really can see that there isn't enough on this topic and this distinction between early years PE and older PE. Just this podcast episode and our kind of interaction has really exemplified that even more, I guess. So it is a difficult job that you have, doing something that is quite new, isn't it? And innovative.
I mean, I didn't mean for this to happen. I never meant for me to get to the stage where I am now. I just, when I took this job, as I said, I believed that early years had a PE side to it. It wasn't until I had a bit of time to research it that I realized actually everything is physical development. Everything's talking about physical development. But why isn't there? But a lot of what people were talking about physical development for me was PE. People are talking about taking the children with a ball to the park. Yes, you can argue that is physical development, but for me, that's PE. That's teaching the children PE, but at an early years level. So yeah, it has been a massive learning curve. And God, every single day, I've said this so many times, every day is a learning opportunity for me. I learn every single day. And I didn't beforehand, I didn't like kind of arguing the fact of PE should exist in early years, because I kind of was told, no, PE doesn't belong in early years. It's physical. But now I'm starting to kind of really believe that PE does hold its own place. One of the main barriers as to why it probably doesn't happen is funding and budgets and stuff like that. Because obviously, if you was to employ a PE teacher into your setting, that's going to cost a lot of money. And not only that, because it's a role that you would have to then create, it's very hard to sell that role. So that's where the using the educators to be able to do it, that's where training comes from. And that's where if you invested the money into a specialist, or if you used someone who you've got currently on site who may have a background in that as that main tool, then you can kind of build upon that and start to make it grow. I put videos on my LinkedIn for everybody. I mean, if I was selfish on it and I'd want to claim it for myself, I wouldn't put anything out there. I'd say, no, this is mine. I want this. This is all me. But for where we are within the early years sector, I think it's important to share that it is possible to do these activities, and you don't need to be a professional in any sense. You could just have a passion for it. So all the videos I put on my LinkedIn just explain different ways of how to teach certain lessons. I kind of break it down every week. I do a different video to say, on week 1 we do this, week 2 we're going to do this, and just the natural progressions. It's really simple, really basic, really brief, and I put it out there for practitioners hopefully to see, and they can get some inspiration from that. I don't expect it to be copied. By no means is the work that I do that exemplary. This is how it has to be. This is how it should be. That's just what works for me. It's what works for our children. But I know there's other companies that are doing something similar to what we do, and I know that I've seen images and videos of their settings doing things like golf, and I love that. I think that's amazing. So it's just trying to inspire the idea. I don't think I'm ever going to get to the phase where I'm turned around to it and said, yeah, PE has to be in the early years. You've changed it. It's amazing. That's not what I think. I think it's just fighting for the understanding of, PE does deserve to be in the early years. And can anyone listening to this, or owners of companies or managers of companies that have the authority to make those changes, is it worth investing some money into this, into a PE specialist, or upskilling a current member of staff that you have, maybe giving them a bit of emphasis on, okay, I want you to take the children out and do a little PE lesson. Even just doing that is just making that little step forward to what I believe should be a statutory part of what the children in early years are doing.
Yeah, and it really taps, what you're saying now taps into that debate that I hear around settings, bringing in external companies to do PE lessons. And there's kind of a lot of debate around that, because we talk about educators being kind of experts in what they do, and they have enough expertise in terms of physical development. And like you just said, anyone can teach PE, and it doesn't have to be at like a higher level, and you don't have to have all the expertise like you do and all that background. But I guess it still show like your role is important, and obviously you've kind of demonstrated that through the work that you do and talking about it on here. So it's just, if you do train a member of staff, or if you do bring someone in that's external, then it's just taking it up a level, isn't it? And gaining and kind of letting them gain that expertise and then giving that to the children, just like we do with, so like when we bring artists into settings and like part of the Reggio Emilia approach, and, you know, if we have an atelier and they're called an atelier-ista, and, you know, we kind of see that as standard practice in those Reggio-inspired settings. And it's just taking that project-based learning and you know, that creativity and artistic aspect a step further. But so is this, isn't it? It's, if you're taking in an expert in physical education, then it's just taking it a notch higher.
Yeah, I'm writing, I don't know if by the time this comes out, it may already be out, but where I'm writing an article with Dr. Lana Mallers and Helen Bately with Nursery World, and it's exactly on that topic, where it's a 6-part article where we're looking at how an internal specialized person and an external company can correlate together and learn from each other. So exactly what you're talking about there. If you got an external company, let's say, for example, you got a football coaching company to come in and deliver 6 weeks of football to the children. Amazing, really, really good. But what then? What comes after that? Is that 6 weeks to that external company is great for them. They've got that session done. That's ticked off. But then where does the practitioner then take what they've got and continue to build upon that? So it's that's where it will become very expensive for a setting to continuously bring in external companies. You could bring in a football, a rugby, a cricket, etc. What I think we're trying to establish within this article is, how can those external companies work together with the educators? How can the educators help the external companies in terms of, okay, our children really enjoy doing this, so maybe they can learn something as well. But also, what can our educators, from even just observing a lesson that these external companies might put on, what can they learn from watching this company, and what can they do to replicate that moving forwards? And I think it's a lot of this PE, because there are so many companies out there that will do that you can bring in. I think a lot of the perception of PE is, that's your job, or that's someone else's job, or I can't do that. That's not for me to do. That's, God, you need an expert to do this. I think that's the reason why I with what I do, I love what I do so much, because I have that whole 12 months with these children. So I have my preschool children from September to September. I have that autonomy to be with them through that year. We can watch them grow. We can progress things in a certain way. I understand those children. External companies won't have that. They won't get that attachment. They won't get that, okay, well, I know that child really well, so I know what they really like and they really enjoy. Who has that? Who has that knowledge? The current educators, the practitioners that we have in our settings. They know the children better than anybody. So they know what the children like and they know what the children don't like. And I think that's where it's just filling that void between, do we need an expert to come in to be able to do it? I believe no. I believe we can work together with that, but I don't think it's a solution where we have to just look at external companies. I think that's a big investment for something that potentially won't have as much benefit unless our educators start to work together with those external companies and understand different methods and ways to teach. Then I think that's kind of the recipe for success in the long run.
So it seems like it can be a lot of money for educators to bring in external experts, I guess. But also it's almost like a little bit of a cheat and the easy solution of being like, okay, we've got an expert that's come in, they've taught the children PE or a specific skill, that's it, we don't have to do anything. Actually, like you say, it's really about working together and embedding all of that work, all of that knowledge. So it's far more than just a kind of tick list exercise, or like as an extra to sell to parents and say, we've got these experts coming in, your child's going to learn these skills. It needs to be embedded far more than that.
Yeah, and I think a really good example of this to kind of compare it to is the forest school. Look, I mean, we've got so many forest school based nurseries across the UK now.
Yeah.
You look 10 years ago, that was a completely brand new concept that people would have been like, what? We can't run a nursery outdoors all day. That's impossible.
Yeah.
And I think if you looked at that and you took that to today from where they were there, forest school makes sense. Forest school makes complete sense. It's amazing. We run forest school here at Dicky Birds, and that is another thing. We have a forest school teacher who he takes the children to a particular forest school site, and that happens there. If we was to get people in to do that, that just becomes it becomes gimmicky. I think it just becomes like, oh yeah, we're doing this as almost like a sell to the parents. Be like, oh yeah, it's great. We're going to get a forest school thing happening, or we're going to get a football coach to come in and do that. Amazing, really, really nice. But that's where you ask the question: what do you do from here? Why are we doing that? If you was to get forest school experts to come in and train up practitioners, which happens with a forest school program, they do that. They train up practitioners to be able to continue that. That's my question. Where does that sit with PE? Can we get to the point where, someone goes in and trains up the practitioners in a basic way to understand the really core values of what PE looks like in early years, for them to be able to practice and demonstrate their own PE lessons?
And it's not even something that is completely new and completely different to early years. It is just really embedding it in as part of children's physical development. And like we were saying at the beginning, taking it a step further. And ultimately, children are not only kind of interested in something new or kind of exposed to those skill sets around a specific sport, but it's also benefiting their health and their well-being. So it is only adding to children's current learning and development. It's not completely kind of new concept.
I don't believe one should exist without the other. Physical development can't be taken away, and PE can't be left on its own pedestal. It has to just be, I think PE just needs to become a word that is used regularly in early years and accepted as a concept that can be done, as opposed to something that they feel like shouldn't be in the early years sector because they're too young for it. So I think that's the main thing that I try to voice. And I mean, one of the reasons why I talk today on a podcast like yours is just to get that word out, is to say it should be said, it should be done. Nurseries should have PE programs, no matter what it looks like. There's no guideline. So trial, error, understand the children, and there's only benefits to it.
Yeah, well, I think that's a good place to kind of naturally wrap this podcast episode up. Thank you, Josh. And it'd be really interesting to hear other people's thoughts and the practices that are already out there. Like you said, many practitioners may already be doing PE but not really realizing it. So yeah, it'd be great to spark some more discussion around this topic. Hopefully this episode does that.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And also, if people do want to check out my LinkedIn, all the videos are on there. So just for those sparks of ideas, that's what they're there for.
Yeah, I definitely recommend for people to go and have a look. So do check them out, because they're free, and it's just you sharing, like you said, your practice, your knowledge, your passion. And I watched the cricket one, and I did think that was really cool. I'll be taking some of those ideas. So I don't have any children of my own, and I'm not in practice anymore, but I'll definitely be using your ideas with kind of friends' children, and family. So definitely have a look at those videos. Yeah, thank you. And our listeners can find out more on the Voice of Early Childhood website. And I'm sure we'll have Josh on again, as you mentioned, talking about, what did you say? Physical literacy might be an interesting topic, to unpick. So, hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you.